Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Today I'm going to do a response video to comments that I got on a video I did a little while ago. It was about the question of whether you can love animals and still eat them, and whether or not you have to be an animal lover to be a vegan. So check that video out if you haven't seen it. And really this video is going to be a direct response to the comments I got from one of the regular viewers, Saint Coemgen. So thank you for your comments, and the reason why I want to actually address these directly in a video format is because I think this actually applies to a great number of people, and not just this comment directly, because I see this kind of thing come up all the time when interacting with people, especially on Twitter or like in real life as well, when it's a more direct conversation that I have with people. So let me just read through the comment, and then I'll address it kind of as we get into the details. So this is starts off some points of thought on my part. I have hens and I love them. They each have a name, and hens will lay eggs even if a rooster is not around. I have to be a vegan and cannot eat the eggs even if they are not fertilized and will never become chickens. Is it to be claimed that a vegan that throws away the eggs is by definition more an animal lover than the person who eats the eggs? I have goats. They are my pets, but they are females. At some point they make more milk than their young can consume. I have to waste or throw away the milk and be vegan and not drink it or make cheese. I have horses. They poop. I collect this and I compost it, put it on the vegetable garden, which is an animal product, and I through the veggies I am eating the result of that animal product. Products from the cloacal, mammary, or digestive system are all animal products, direct or indirect, and of use that need not be fully ignored even by animal lovers who choose not to be vegan. In my humble opinion, loving animals does not mean one cannot humanely use what they produce, and all such products are not always vegan. One does not need to be vegan if they unequivocally love animals, again, in my humble opinion. And in short, there are no easy answers. It is complicated, maybe as many reasons why as there are vegans. Being a vegan or not may be a health decision, for example. It may have nothing to do with animal welfare or love. Either way, to each their own, I say. So maybe I'll start with the back end of it, because that's, I think, the easiest one to address. So really this idea that you can be a health vegan or some other kind of vegan other than an ethical vegan. I think there is somewhat of a, I give you that point, that it is complicated, because I think people will still consider themselves vegan, regardless of the reason why they may be vegan. But one thing that I will say is that in my experience, oftentimes people who are health vegans are not really truly vegans, because they will still do things that are not vegan and consume products that are not vegan, maybe not as food, but as just buying things. So maybe they're like shampoos or skin products or whatever, or the things that they might buy, like leather shoes or leather belts or leather jackets, or like a down stuffed jacket or a pillow or something like that. Like, there's no health reason to avoid the use of those products or the purchasing of those products, and really it would be an ethical vegan that would choose to avoid that because of the cruelty involved in their production, and not because it's harming them in any way, shape, or form, even if you do believe that consuming animal products is bad for you. So I would think that's hopefully addressing that point. This idea of using products from animals in a humane way, I actually have kind of a probably somewhat controversial view on this, because as I've said before in my debate with Millennial Prepster, when Logan Blake and I debated him, I said to him that if I take what he says to be true, and I see no reason why I shouldn't necessarily give people the benefit of the doubt, and what I said to him was that if it's true that he actually lives his life the way he says he does, and if the whole world lived that way, I would say again that we wouldn't be seeing pretty much almost any of the huge problems that we have in today's day and age with regards to environment or bad ill effects on people's health, because he's largely vegan. He eats mostly his own produced homegrown fruits and veggies, he says, and the only animal products that he consumes are his own well looked after and humanely slaughtered rabbits. And I would still, as I did in that debate, try to argue with somebody like that to forego the killing of those rabbits because they can be vegan through the simple, purchase of a vitamin B12 supplement. That's his only excuse for killing and eating the rabbits. But what I said in that video, or in that debate, I should say, was that if everybody actually did what he says he does, we wouldn't be having these discussions, I believe. We wouldn't be in the mess we are in. Like from an environmental standpoint, we wouldn't be in the mess we are in from a health standpoint, like the crisis that we're seeing with diabetes and overweight and heart disease and all these other things. Because if people consumed that little animal products and they ate from their backyard and ate healthy fruits and veggies for the bulk of their calories, I think that we would actually be pretty healthy. If you look at many of the societies that were studied by a lot of the plant-based doctors, and that we've seen actually large-scale epidemiological studies on, most of those people were eating 90x%, some 90 whatever percent of their diet from plants, and they had incredible health outcomes. So I don't believe that necessarily you would get really bad health outcomes. In fact, I think probably maybe you wouldn't even see anything. I mean, we did have the other study with milk jar where we showed that even a little consumption of animal products did have worse outcomes than the people who ate less. But again, those might be the difference between living to 99 and versus living to 95, both with relatively good health outcomes. Like, most people probably wouldn't care at that point. And I really don't think we would be seeing the kind of problems we do. But now here's where I get where I take issue with this kind of thinking. The reason I take issue with this is that with the best of intentions, when people say things like this, I still question whether or not they're actually doing what they say they're doing. So I asked back in the comments here, you should actually read through it if anybody has a little bit of interest in this. Generally is also a frequent viewer, and she responded really well, I think, to a lot of St. Coemgen's comments. But basically, the question is, okay, you have these animals, you love them, but A, where are they coming from? So when the hens die out, St. Coemgen is a vegetarian, a long-term vegetarian, so he's not eating them. I'm assuming he just probably gets rid of the bodies or buries them at some point. But that is a good question. What are you doing with them, even if you're not consuming them? And also, how are you replacing them? Because if you don't have a rooster to fertilize the eggs, at some point those hens die out and you are getting new ones. So where are you getting those, and are they treated in ethically, humanely way, just like you claim to treat yours? So that's one question. Same thing with the goats. If they're all female, how are they getting pregnant? Why are they producing milk? Why are they having babies? Clearly, you're not really telling the whole story. There is some kind of way that you're getting them pregnant. What are you doing with the with the kids as they grow up? So yeah, that's another question. Like, are you getting rid of the males? Where are they going? That's number one. Number two is your thing of you're only taking the excess milk. I've said in the comment back to you, a lot of people don't realize this, but mammals will actually be able to adapt the amount of milk they produce depending on the need. So if you are actually not taking the excess, there will be no excess, because the animal will only produce what it needs for its young. Even in humans too, I know this because I have children of my own. If the mother breastfeeds the child, and in between feedings from the baby, if they use a breast pump, either manual or automatic, to pump more milk, the body will actually produce more, and you can actually save some, put it in the freezer, etc., etc. Or a lot of times people will actually sell breast milk to mothers who can't breastfeed. There's like a whole market for that. Like, people will keep pumping out their breast milk and selling it. The animals are the same way. The cows or the goats or anything that is suckling its young will be able to ramp up or down the milk production as required. There will be no excess. A lot of times I come across like comments from people like in India, where there's a lot of kind of a history of people milking cows and things like that in a what is deemed a more humane method, using their hands to milk the cows, and they only take what is considered to be the excess after the babies have eaten, and et cetera, et cetera. But the whole thing remains that there would be no excess if you wouldn't be taking it. So that in and of itself should not be used, I think, as an excuse to continue to take it. Regarding the horses and the poop, I think, that is like the one thing that I really don't see a problem with. It's like, that is a complete waste product. I don't see anything unethical about taking poop from an animal if that's the only thing you're doing, and if you're not like breeding the animals to produce the poop, which obviously nobody would do that. That would be totally uneconomical and unrealistic. There's also, I think, a lot better ways to get, really good quality fertilizers using mulch and compost, and in fact, human manure, as I'm learning, is another very viable option that people could use their own human manure and use that as fertilizer. I know there are laws about that make it difficult in some places, but it's certainly not something that is inherently difficult or out of the question. And it's not technically difficult either. I think it's just people have an aversion to it. They somehow think that that's gross or disgusting. I know I did before I actually started getting educated about it and realizing that it's no different than cow poop or horse poop or any other kind of poop if it's treated correctly and the allotted time has passed. So yeah, I think, those are kind of the comments that I already replied back. And what I want to add to this is, the main crux of the issue for me is that if these are the only animal products you are consuming, and you're literally kind of out there and you're never harming these animals and you're doing everything you can to give them the best life possible, and this is the only animal products you consume, I would still, try to tell you, like, look, it's not good for your health. It's not ideal in the sense that, like, you are still taking something from the animal that really, doesn't belong to you. Sorry, I forgot to mention, in the case of the eggs, a lot of times, from what I understand anyway, is that chickens will actually eat their unfertilized eggs because they realize that they're not hatching, they're unfertilized. They will actually eat that because they reabsorb a lot of the nutrients. The process of them making the egg is actually taxing on their body. So to make the eggshell and everything, that's leaching calcium from their body and whatever they're consuming. So like the greens they're pecking at and all this kind of stuff, they take that calcium and they form the eggshell. When they re-eat their own egg, they're getting back some of those nutrients into their body to make it easier on them. Now, obviously, if it's a really well cared for hen in a backyard with plenty of access to pasture and bugs and green weeds and grasses to nibble on, they're probably fine. And I don't think that they would be kind of like needing that egg as much as some animal that was really kind of hard up on getting enough nutrients and stuff. I've seen comments back from people on various vegan videos where they say that they have backyard hens and they've never observed the hen actually eating its own egg. So I mean, I can only take that for like the face value of what people are saying. I personally don't have hens. I never have kept them. I at one point considered doing that before I actually decided to become a vegan. And my long-term goal was to actually have hens of my own, but I haven't done that, and I don't know. So if that's true, I would still just say, yeah, it's just, it's not nice that like you're keeping them for that purpose, and you're still kind of like using their products. But I would really not see an issue with it because, if you're not harming them and they're able to like live a good life, and you're not killing them when they can, get past the age of like producing enough eggs, and they're just kind of allowed to live out their whole life and you're not killing them, I would say that's like, not as bad as like what many vegans would probably say. But now here's the issue with all of these things, is that if these are the only animal products you're consuming, then I would say, okay, like I really don't have an issue with this. But my issue with people who say these kinds of things is that they will often go out and they will go out with friends and they will go traveling, or they'll be on vacation or wherever, they'll be out for a work function, and they will not limit their choices to a vegan option. So when you're out at a restaurant, like, are you also picking a vegan option to make sure that you're only consuming these ethically, humanely, massaged and loved and, petted animals that you hold dear and you can name them all? Or are you just being like, well, whatever, it's only once a month, it's only once a week, it's only once a day, it's only whatever, a couple times a year. Like, are you then just throwing away your ethics? Are you throwing away your compassion and just getting whatever's out the menu? And in my experience with every person that I've talked to so far, they will literally all do that. So I don't know if that's the case with you, and I don't intend to imply that that is the case with you. But my only concern is that that's what people do. That's what people do that I've encountered, and people will take offense to this and they'll get upset. But I've literally had this conversation with many people, and when I ask them, like, so when you go to a restaurant, are you only getting a vegan option? They're like, no, like, what are you talking about? And it's like, but it's like you just said, well, you only eat ethically sourced or like humane or grass-fed or cage-free or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, I do the best I can. And it's like, yeah, the best you can would be this situation. And, very few people are doing this. Very few people have a lot of land. Very few people are working that land and doing their own farm and raising their own animals and, doing this kind of a setup. And even these people, I do question whether or not they, they are just sticking to just those things, or are they eating other stuff too? And yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of like my take on this. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything to add, I'd love to hear them. St. Coemgen, if you want to reply to this, I'm happy to have a further discussion on it, or even a live stream if you want. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to like pick on you. I think it's just a wider kind of thing that a lot of people will use this kind of example as a justification for their own kind of choices and lifestyle. They'll say like, yeah, but I only buy the eggs that I get from the farm down the road, and I know those people, and I know they treat their hens right and whatever. And it's like with each point of removing yourself from the actual production, you're getting farther and farther away from the actual like possibility that this could actually be some kind of like humane treatment of the animal. And I think for most people what ends up happening is they are just using these labels as a means to kind of assuage their fears and guilt and feelings of shame that they don't want to be supporting factory farming, and they somehow think that by buying the slightly more expensive steak that cow had a better life, when in all reality most likely it did not. And even if it did have a slightly better life, it's very minuscule, and they both suffered horrifically at the slaughterhouse. So I know that's not the case with you, because you are a vegetarian, so you're not directly eating the meat of the animals. But again, it's just something that I think I would want you to consider if you are eating out, and if you're going to friends' houses or things like that. Like, are you affording those choices the same consideration? So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a little bit long, but hopefully that was interesting. And let me know if you guys want any kind of further follow-up discussion on this, or St. Coemgen, if you want to continue this, let me know. Cool. Thanks, everybody. See you in the next one.